when you really get into it, you see how Pastor Mark Burns experienced a dramatic transformation in his perspective after visiting Ukraine. It's like he went from staunchly opposing more support to now declaring that supporting Ukraine is America first.
Yeah, exactly. Right, that pivot is huge. I mean, imagine being so moved firsthand by the horrors like at Kryvyi Rih, where a missile attack killed 20 people, including children. It really shakes your beliefs up.
Absolutely. And the details he shared, from the brutal attacks on civilians and churches to the staggering kidnapping figures and destruction of almost 700 religious institutions, that really paints a grim picture of what's happening.
Yes, it definitely does. And then there's his claim that the once prevalent fake news narratives about Ukraine-hating churches are just lies. Isn't that a strong counter-narrative that he pushes?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you listen to him, he recalls how he was in Kyiv with influential spiritual leaders from diverse denominations, and they all agreed on the right to freely practice their faith. It really undermines the idea that Ukraine was anti-religion.
But don't you think that his repositioning might oversimplify some of the nuances of the conflict? I mean, politics is rarely black and white.
That's a solid critique. His narrative is intensely emotional and painted in broad strokes, like declaring that supporting Ukraine is an absolute must against pure evil. Yet it does come from witnessing real human suffering that leaves little room for political ambiguity.
Yeah. That raw intensity shows when he describes Vladimir Putin as pure evil. That's a really definitive moral stance. But could that kind of language, come off as too incendiary for some audiences?
It might indeed. I mean, painting a world leader with such a stark brush, while it certainly underlines the moral urgency, is not without its risks. But keep in mind, he draws from his background as a former National Guard member, so there's that layer of personal and military insight behind his words.
Yes, right. I see that. And then there's the element of his support for President Trump. Even as he shifts his stance on Ukraine, he still reaffirms that Trump is a man of true conviction. How do you read that duality?
It's fascinating. He essentially frames his support for Ukraine not as a rejection of Trump, but as an extension of his belief in what is morally right, defending innocent lives and condemning a brutal aggressor. It's like melding spiritual conviction with political loyalty.
Exactly.
He intertwines them tightly.
And then there's the rallying cry for more military aid, tanks, fighter jets, air defense, to help Ukraine effectively defend itself. That's a clear declaration after his shift in perspective. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's charged with urgency. Seeing atrocities firsthand changes everything, right? It turns abstract political debate into a pressing, visceral need. By calling for more support, he's emphasizing that practical measures like advanced weaponry are essential to protect innocent lives and ensure any hope for peace.
It's a very human reaction too. When you're face to face with the devastation, ideological barriers start to crumble. But do you think this kind of transformation on the ground speaks to a broader trend, or is it just him?
I think it hints at a broader possibility. When reality hits home, it forces even the most steadfast to reassess their views. His story brings that personal, almost spiritual reawakening to the forefront, a moment where moral duty trumps political dogma.
Yes. Right, and adding to that, his historical analogy, comparing the current Ukrainian defense to the spirit of early American patriots fighting the British, is a vivid illustration meant to rally his listeners. It's a powerful way to frame the struggle, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's like reinforcing that every fight for freedom has deep historical roots and universal resonance. That analogy helps solidify his argument that this isn't just about one country's politics, but about defending fundamental human rights.
Yet, while his narrative is impassioned, it does risk oversimplifying geopolitical complexities. Can we really distill a multifaceted international conflict into a simple good versus evil scenario?
Well, that's definitely a point where we need to ask, what's the purpose of his message? He's using his first-hand experience and moral impetus as a tool to cut through layers of political spin. Yes, it leaves out some nuances, but it's a call for urgent action, not a detailed policy briefing.
Right, that's true. And alongside that, his direct critique of fake news and media bias adds another layer to his argument. It's almost as though he's calling on all Americans, especially conservatives, to look beyond the headlines and see the raw, unfiltered reality, right?
Exactly, and that's one of the more compelling elements here. It's like an invitation to question established narratives. But I'll challenge you on one point. While his emotional witness is potent, how much does it rely on personal bias? Are we leaving space for objective analysis?
That's a fair challenge. Personal experience is by nature subjective. Yet, when it's combined with on the ground observations and historical context, it still pushes critical questions. Even if it seems one sided to some, it cannot be dismissed outright because the human cost is indisputable.
Indeed, and in turbulent times like these, sometimes a stark, if polarizing, message can cut through the echo chamber. His statement that supporting Ukraine is America first is provocative, but it's meant to shock us into confronting harsh realities.
Yeah, right. It also reminds us that when atrocities occur, when innocent lives are lost and cultures are attacked, politics should take a back seat to addressing moral imperatives. It's a bold stance that resonates on many levels.
For sure. And as he mentioned, there's this urgency in his heart. It's like his own spiritual awakening, telling him to admit when he's wrong and work towards what he now sees as the higher good. That's a powerful message, and it has an almost contagious effect on his listeners.
At the same time, we have to consider that his rhetoric might alienate those who prefer a more nuanced debate. Calling Putin pure evil directly might make moderates feel defensive rather than engage in dialogue.
That's true, and it raises important questions. Does using such stark terms help build a coalition, or does it end up polarizing further? His fervor is unmistakable, but it might leave little room for a middle ground in a complex conflict.
Indeed, right? It's a delicate balance, using powerful language to rally support, while also ensuring that we don't oversimplify the many layers of international relations. His testimony certainly stirs up a mix of emotions and critical analysis.
Exactly. And whether you agree with every aspect of his call or not, his personal encounter with the devastation in Ukraine forces us to reflect on the very real human costs of political decisions. It's like a wake-up call to not let rhetoric overshadow the suffering of real people.
Absolutely, yes. Well put. And it reminds us that in discussing these issues, we have to balance emotional truth with a measured understanding of the geopolitical landscape. It definitely fuels a broader conversation about responsibility and moral duty on the world stage.
Right. And while his blunt language and personal stance may not offer every answer, it certainly challenges us to re-examine our views on conflict, media influence, and moral responsibility in international affairs.
Yeah, exactly. In the end, it's these personal, sometimes polarizing testimonies that make us think harder about what freedom, faith, and duty truly mean in a world fraught with conflict.
Exactly. And that's the kind of conversation that keeps us engaged, opening our eyes to both the emotional and political dimensions. Regardless of opinions, the sheer human tragedy he describes is a call to remain alert and compassionate.
Right, absolutely. It's been a thought-provoking dive into these issues today, balancing faith, personal transformation, and hard geopolitical realities. It really makes you pause and reflect, doesn't it?
It sure does, and thank you for joining in on this conversation. Until next time, let's keep asking the tough questions and striving for a deeper understanding of the world around us.
Thank you, and take care out there.